Actress Salma Hayek has a new neck, Australian influencer Indy Clinton has a new nose, and Meghan Trainor has new boobs. One woman is taking us along for the journey. Another is an ambassador for a brand new non-invasive treatment. And the third is posting sponsored content, encouraging anyone motivated to make a change of their own to visit a board-certified plastic surgeon near you. Let's start with Indy Clinton. She's got 3 kids. She's got 2.1 million followers on Instagram. She's massive on TikTok. And she rose to fame because she's sort of the antithesis to the Byron Bay Earth Mother aesthetic. She was very real about the chaos of motherhood. Anyway, recently she made the decision to get a rhinoplasty to resolve an injury after a surfing accident. And when she first announced it to her followers, this was after she'd done it, she was visibly shaking. She explained that she didn't want to tell them, but they were going to be able to see it, so she wanted to be up front without actually promoting the procedure. Seems reasonable. Then there's Salma Hayek, a 58-year-old actress who is now an ambassador for a non-invasive skin tightening and lifting treatment she uses on her neck. And she did this interview with The Cut where she said she felt like she'd started to look, and this is a quote, like a turkey, but didn't want to go under the knife. But here's where things get a little murky. A few months ago, singer Meghan Trainor posted sponsored content on Instagram for a breast augmentation and lift.
It's Meghan Trainor, and I've got some big news to share. Yep, I got my boobs done.
Ooh.
The music makes it sound really fun.
I started off going, yeah, I'm into this. That's fine. And then when she started going into quite a lot of details about the specifics of the actual implants, I started to feel a bit icky.
Yes, so this is also in among sponsored content for laundry detergent and e.l.f. cosmetics. And then the natural progression is, of course, her breast implants.
You know what I was confused about, Jessie?
Yeah.
She was wearing a cardigan buttoned up to the neck all the way through the video. And I kept being like, and I'm not proud of myself for this.
Yeah.
Show me the boobs.
Show us your tits.
Show me the boobs. And she obviously, I'm imagining, and obviously this is conjecture, that in the negotiation, she would have been like, I will do SponCon for your boobs, but I will be keeping all my clothes on.
You would think the client would say, we want the product front and centre. We want that to be really highlighted. Get the boobs out. But no,
It's a negotiation, I guess.
How celebrities do or don't talk about the work they have done is something they and the rest of the culture is navigating in real time. Does advertising invasive surgery to your 18.3 million followers as though it is nothing more than a new bra feel weird to you too? Mia.
Do you know who I was thinking about when you started talking about this is Julia Morris, because she got an upper, it's called an upper blepharoplasty, where you basically get your eyelids, a bit chopped out of your eyelids so they're not so droopy. Very common procedure now. She wasn't sponsored, but she was very transparent about it. And the thing is that when you've got the demands of social media and people with public profile, people will notice and comment if you look different. And then there are some people like Indy Clinton who publish content all the time. And, if she was going to try to hide something, she'd have to not post anything for 2 weeks. So I always am in favour of transparency. I think transparency is great. Where it gets a little bit conflicting is when it's sponsored. And listening to that was really helpful, listening to that, because I found what Julia Morris did really helpful. When you've got Salma Hayek and Meghan Trainor being paid to say stuff, it's really easy to confuse that with their actual personal testimonial. But a breast augmentation and lift is a really big deal. I've had friends who've had even just reductions, and any kind of surgery, there's a lot of recovery, and it's always a lot more than you think it's going to be. And obviously that gets brushed down under the carpet because when you're sponsored, you only talk about the good stuff. So I feel like maybe I like the transparency part of it, but it's not completely transparent because it just really is spin.
I agree with Mia on that, because we should be clear that here in Australia we actually have very strict regulations about what you can and can't promote when it comes to cosmetic procedures and even some cosmetic products like sunscreen. So this isn't necessarily all content that you would be able to see in quite the same way here. But that's the problem, is that we all know, and everybody does know this, I think. We've become much more digitally literate around this.
But Hol, I've got a question. We do see it here, right? Because they go on social media and talk about it.
You do see it here, but there are very strict rules. So there are some brand names you can't use. There are some things you cannot advocate for. You can say that you've used it, but you can't necessarily say that it worked. Like there's a lot of different guidelines around it.
But we can still see what Meghan Trainor says and what Salma says, right? Like it's not blocked in Australia.
No, it's not blocked, but that's not Australian approved content.
Got it.
Like it wouldn't be approved here. But the thing is for exactly the reasons that you say, that we know that when you make a deal to do sponsored content, whatever it is, you agree what you are and aren't going to say. It doesn't mean that it's not honest to a point, but it means that you might airbrush certain things. And that is clearly what's going on here. I don't really have a problem with it, except for the fact that it clearly signals a mainstreaming of quite serious procedures. But I think that's happening anyway. Like, I think that things that we used to think were quite extreme, whether that be injections or weight loss drugs or whatever, we used to maybe think were sort of for the 1%. As that trickles down and becomes more available and cheaper and more democratized, then of course everybody wants to find new ways to sell it to you. I think it's really, I don't know, it still feels strange to me. Like, I remember when Gwyneth Paltrow did an out-and-out ad for a particular type of anti-wrinkle injector that she was claiming was more natural than some others. It's jarring because you're just like, oh, you're actually selling me things to put inside myself. It just feels a bit icky, but I think it's inevitable.
It does feel like we're going that way. And I'm with Mia that the stakes feel a lot higher when someone is going under a general anesthetic and we know about things like breast implant illness, right? And as you say, what we're not seeing with Meghan Trainor is the recovery. In fact, she's saying it was really quick, it was really easy. I couldn't believe how good I felt. And you think, well, if it wasn't any of those things, you wouldn't really be able to say. So when I looked at it, I feel quite differently about Salma Hayek, though, because it's non-invasive. And I'm grappling with where my line is and why. And it made me think of there were a few Australian influencers a few years ago who worked with a very famous Australian cosmetic surgeon, and it was very unclear whether they got discounted treatments in exchange for maybe collaborating or sharing their image, and there were tummy tucks and breast augmentation, and they cited this particular doctor, and he now has a class action suit out against him. So your due diligence and—
Do you mean from women who had procedures that didn't go very well?
Exactly right. Really, really serious complications and really serious allegations. And
it's easy to think, oh, it's all great and I had it and blah, 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 and what the internet doesn't always show the reality. You're right.
And it feels different. I remember Kelly McCarran, who is the host of You Beauty and is on a bunch of Mamamia podcasts. She, a few years ago, showed a realistic recovery from a nose job. And it was, I had never seen anything like that. It was so candid. It was the bruising. It was the packing. It was the months of recovery. The honesty was so refreshing because she wasn't trying to sell us anything, which I think, to your point, Mia, is Julia Morris as well. Like, there's a transparency to that. But when your message has to be filtered because you're being paid, and we also don't know the specifics of the contract, right? Like, were you going to get this surgery anyway? Was the surgery paid for? Are you then paid on top for all of those things? I think we kind of have to know if we're going to get SponCon for having your body cut open.
Yeah, it's a bit ethically murky, isn't it? It was interesting because a couple of weeks ago, Anne Hathaway turned up at a fashion show in Paris, and there was a lot of talk on the internet about her having a new face. And there were cosmetic surgeons who had not operated on her, and she has not made any comment about it. But in the same way that people apply their forensic lenses to true crime stories, people also do that to the faces of women in the public eye often. And there were a whole lot of posts made and cosmetic surgeons coming out and saying, here's what I think she's had done and this and this and this. And then there were close-ups of what people said was some filler in her jaw, and everyone was trying to figure it out. And I think that there's two ways to look at it. There's the way of saying, well, that's really mean. We should just not talk about women's faces and we should leave women alone. And I totally get that. Then there's the idea that it's if we aren't allowed to notice that women who are in their 40s and 50s and even 60s look like they're in their 20s and 30s, if we're not even allowed to notice that and wonder how they've done it, and then what effect does that have on us?
I understand the reluctance to say specifically what you've had done, though, because what is the line between transparency and
privacy
and being instructive, right? Because Indy Clinton, for example, was trying to be very clear. I've had this done for reasons, some reasons I'll share with you, maybe some reasons that aren't any of our business, but I'm not telling you that you need a nose job. Whereas, and you could see with Meghan Trainor's messaging, it was a bit like, I'm wondering if it was Meghan. No, it was someone else I saw who had done SponCon with, maybe it was liposuction, and they had a part of their caption that said, if something bothers you 3 times a day, change it. And I thought, that is so toxic.
Meghan's message is interesting because it's when she says, I'm working really hard and I'm mumming really hard and I wanted to do something just for me. It's like repositioning surgery as self-care. That's really interesting too. But to Hathaway, and the thing that I have an issue with about that is I think that it's an entirely different thing when people tell you what they're doing or they're open about it, all those things, to being forensically invasive on a woman's face. Like, we have no idea what Anne Hathaway did to her face or if she did anything to her face. And yet everybody's there with their zoom-ins and their circles. And these days, the A-list, the pinnacle of beauty, the people we hold up as pinnacle beauty have access to all, as I just said, it will all trickle down eventually, but they have access to things we don't even know about. And they're getting all kinds of infusions and injections and peptides and this and that. And it's like, what do we want from them? Do we want x-rays and blood types? And it's just, can't we just, I do have a problem with that because I think it turns up the surveillance on every woman, which we already weighs really heavily on us all.
Can I add one more sprinkle? How do you two feel about this, right? If you went to Meghan Trainor's link in bio, where she will tell you all about the implant, trademarked, blah, blah, blah.
Is there a discount code?
Mia, there's a discount code.
Oh, my God.
Yeah. You too can get $250 off your breast augmentation.
Oh, my God.
How do you feel about that?
Not good. I don't feel good. Because then also, that's so interesting. What response, if I go and get her discount code and use it and my boob job goes horribly wrong or I die under anaesthetic or something happens, what is her responsibility there? Like, I know legally probably nothing, but ethically encouraging someone to have cosmetic surgery with a discount code, wow.